So welcome everyone to the third session in the Teacher, Technician and Advisor workshop series. Thank you to everyone who joined yesterday's workshops. We had a great time, hope you did too. It's been really lovely seeing all of your outcomes, and hopefully you've been able to see them on our Instagram as well. So for those of you that didn't attend yesterday, my name is Olivia and I work in the recruitment and outreach team at NUA. We're really sorry that we can't welcome you on campus for this event at the moment, but hopefully this series of online workshops will give you some exciting resources for your teaching toolkit. And then just to keep you up to date with how the NUA community are dealing with COVID-19, we'll put the link to our latest FAQs in the chat function and hope that's helpful for you. Just some housekeeping bits before we do get going. For this session, if you could please keep your audio and video muted for the majority of the workshop, that would just make it flow a little bit more. We are going to have some kind of interactive elements where we'd love to see your character designs. And at those specific moments, we'll encourage you to let us know in the chat if you're happy to share your work, and then we can look to unmute you and ask you to share your video as well. Also, if you do have any questions, please put those in the chat function and we'll answer those throughout the session. And then we can also have a moment at the end for Jon to answer those questions as well. And then in terms of how it's also going to work, Jon will have his presentation up, but he'll also be showing his work as he's creating his characters as well. So on Zoom, you can actually, if you switch to just speaker view in the little thumbnail pictures, you can also drag that across to enlarge Jon's picture so you can see his work a lot more clearly. And if you have any problems with that, do let us know in the chat function and we can try and elaborate on the instructions there as well. Also, we are recording this session, so if anyone has any technical problems or your connection drops out, please don't worry, we will make sure that this is available to you afterwards as well. So I think that's everything from me, but I'll be on hand to answer any questions throughout this, but otherwise I'll hand over to Jon and we can get going.
Cool, thank you, Olivia. Hello, everyone. So I'm Jon Dunleavy. I work on the animation team at NUA, teaching 3 years of BA animation. The process we do today is very similar to something we do with first years, which is an exploration of character that can lead to narrative. These are the fundamentals that we then build on for 3 years. So I will move to my first slide. Just an overview. It's an informative but quick journey through the process of character design. It's very practical. There's a mini lecture to start with, and also I'll talk to you about the process and how that mini lecture and those principles we talk about are influencing the decisions we're making. It's all about ideation, coming up with the ideas, developing ideas over anything that's super refined. We will come up with a solution to a process. The tools we're going to use are essentially an A4 piece of paper. I have a little A3 sheet of paper below me here. I'm going to keep on doing this a little bit from time to time to show you my process. Ideally, you need an A4 piece of paper. If you want to work A3 and you have something big, you can, but your favorite pen or pencil. And if you have anything that's slightly thicker, it's handy for one of the tasks, but you can still use the same one pen or your favorite pencil. You can do this process in a biro. It's really not material specific. So this is the end result that we're going to aim for. All of yours will look slightly different. Naturally, we're going to come up with doodles, respond to squiggles, add character to those, and then start to work towards the center. So we'll work from the outside in towards a design solution. We probably won't color them today unless you have coloring materials on hand. I just highlight those in the center for you. So I'm going to give you some examples of character designers just to encourage the idea that there's no one way to go about this process, and any level of drawing expertise is welcome and encouraged here. So yes, to demonstrate that it's all about the exploration of ideas, this is a piece of artwork from Jason Sadler. Got some blue sky pictures, make things like Ice Age. So you can see this really loose, rough, expressive pencil and paper work. Then we're going to move on to someone like Millie Woodcock. She's someone who works locally, graduated from the course, and now teaches on the course as a character designer. She's also an animator. was interesting to show someone who's local and works in the industry, works for a relatively small company, is one of the only animators in the studio. So she will design a character and also animate that, where you might find in a bigger production, like the next slide, Felici Hamos, who works for productions like Wes Anderson's, most famously his productions, stop motion. So we'll design in 2D, traditional, sometimes digital, but very much pencil and paint, coloring and rendering here you'll see it. So that's a designer who then passes those designs on for a team of expert model makers to turn into stop motion. Hyun Song, I really like this expressive artwork, similar in terms of that fantastic Mr. Fox connection from the previous artist. That it reminds me of Quentin Blake or someone like that. That's very expressive, very abstracted, really immediate and loose and fun kind of character design. To someone that's even more simpler, Alex Norris thinks of himself more as a does work in art, but a writer, a comic writer, and express himself with these really almost naively abstracted and really crude pieces of art, but the storytelling and the jokes and the style certainly fit each other very, very well. I really like those. And it's someone like Louis Thomas, a French designer working, living in Paris, worked on DreamWorks, Pixar work, is a writer as well for kids illustration books and makes the artwork for those, also a portrait artist. So a character designer is just but one job for many people. Talks about animators, but also character designers can express themselves in other ways. So we find it really interesting. It's a great way for our students to start off with storytelling. That's what we're going to do today by going through a process. And I just wanted to throw in someone who's a CG artist here, because the bottom left image here, you see very crude sort of doodles and sketches that then get translated into something more high-end, more stylized and turned into computer-generated image characters and animation. And I'll end on Dan Kelby, another graduate from the course, works across TV, film and games. And again, very expressive. This is all digital artwork made on Procreate traditionally, and also a bit of Photoshop. So I suppose some of you may have come across some of those softwares. So the mini lecture we're going to go through here. So it's our starting of getting our pen and paper ready for this. Task one. First thing we're going to do is set our template. So I'll just scan down here so you can follow along. We're going to draw 3 circles. They're more like oblongs actually. So we'll kind of hit the edge of the page. So I'm going to kind of draw upside down. So we're going to do this first. That's our outer ring. Make any old random wobbly shape. The ones in the slides are a bit nicer than the ones I'm going to do here. A second one. And the final one, doesn't matter how big these are necessarily, they're just guides. We can go over them and inside and out of them. The final one's where we're going to put 3 characters in the end. So bear that in mind slightly. You can do this again if you've turned the paper over, if you feel like you haven't got enough space. Again, I'm slightly cheating. I'm using A3 paper. So we've got these 3, and what we're going to do is write our 4 principles in the corner just to note take and go through something similar to what our students will go through. So we're going to write our 4 principles in the corner. I'm just going to click back on my slides. So principle number 1 is thumbnail. So we can write that. I won't write upside down to start with. And the reason I want to talk about that, there are many principles to this, many guiding principles that we come across. I've reduced them down to 4 simple ones. Working small really helps us create multiple ideas. It's economical, it's really quick. So the things we're doing today, the nature of trying to fit quite a lot on an A4 sheet of paper, is that we have to force ourselves to work small, and we can't get hung up on the finer details. We can then just redraw and redraw until we come up with lots and lots of ideas, and it's the really fun part in art to have gone through that process. I'll pull up there for a second. Number 2, we can write silhouette any corner. We're just having a play here. So you can write silhouette, that's our second principle. A good design is often defined by its ability to be read in silhouette. It's something you can do. You can start off with silhouette. You can also come up with a design and then test it in silhouette, so you can redraw it. If you've got digital artwork, you can easily flip it into one pure color. It doesn't have to be black, but often that's done in black. So analyzing that character, that it can be read, that we can see really interesting shapes, that there's enough range in the different types of shapes. This silhouette range of the Simpsons, yes, we probably all know who the Simpsons are, so we can scan those and see those easily. It's interesting to see that they look different from one another in silhouette. You can easily scan them. It's handy for legibility in terms of posing and communicating emotions, that you can really quickly scan A, who it is, and B, the emotions they are pulling. It's something we do even if we're doing traditionally proportioned characters as well, that we scan a pose or a design in silhouette. So it doesn't just have to be these cartoon characters, for want of a better term. So it's something we'll bear in mind when we're designing. We won't necessarily work with that all the time. So number 3, we can draw in one of our third corner, any of the corners. We can write shape language. Shape language is really interesting. It can help us analyze our characters and understand why we respond to them in certain ways, why a hero, a villain, a sidekick, anyone in a cast of characters may communicate a certain personality trait through their design. And often character design and filmmaking is externalizing something that's internal, an internal feeling, and that can come through in character design. For a lot of animation is aimed at kids, but not wholly. But yes, a lot of it is. So for those younger age ranges, we can be very overt with the shape language. We can really play with that to try to communicate obviousness of character. And we can hide characters as well. We may think they're a hero through their design, but actually they're a villain and they can twist. So we can play with this. So rounded shapes often are soft, unthreatening. They can be a parent, a sidekick. A hero could also be rounded. Square characters or rectangle shapes, they can be seen as reliable and strong. So Superman's very strong and sturdy character, but similar, we have character from up here who's often seen as or tried to be portrayed as say boring or stuck in their ways. So the square shape could be used in a few different ways there. The triangles, in the cliche way, we often think of those as villainous shapes. They're sharp, they're pointy, they're dangerous. So we can use those to represent our villains or our enemies. And then we have iteration. An iteration, excuse me, I'm just going to show you this image here. I've got the feeling that should have been there, sorry. The idea that we can come up with lots and lots of ideas, that you first of all, as a character designer, for your own project or in the industry, you want to come up with lots of ideas quickly and efficiently. So you want to explore lots and lots really quickly. So again, thumbnails, it kind of goes hand in hand with thumbnails, that we want to go above and beyond our first instincts or cliches. And that's what we do. We'll come up with lots of ideas and then sift them through to the final outcome today. And you want to do that before you then present a selection of those ideas to your creative team. And then from there, you'll get feedback, and then you'll go away and you'll expand out the ideas. They'll pick the one or the two ideas or a few that you like, and then you expand them again and go and represent. So it's a really interesting process to be a character designer or a designer of any sort. And iteration is fundamental to that and a really interesting part of art. So let's move on to the next slide. So that's our task 1 culmination. Hopefully you've got a sheet of paper which looks like that. Apologies for my missing image. I've got off track there, but you'll have something which looks like that, so you can see the screen there. And we'll move on to the next stage where we start to get drawing. So there's a number of mini tasks. There's about 6 or so before we just present. So a good 8 in total if we get that far. But the idea is to be really loose and rough and don't be precious. We want to draw with a certain amount of speed and looseness. One of the handy tips I like to suggest is that you hold your pen. If you haven't drawn or haven't been drawing for a while, one of the tips on many of our art courses when you're trying to be expressive and playing with ideas is to hold your pen slightly higher than maybe you would when you're writing. So if you hold it slightly higher, there's a looser feel to it. And we want to play with all the mistakes and the lack of control. So I've got a little sketchbook page here, just to encourage you that it's not a piece of art. I mean, I think they're a piece of art in themselves, in that they're really expressive. So do be loose, make a mess. If you do something you don't like, just redraw it somewhere else. There's no right and wrong in this process. So we've done task 1. That's our setting up of the page and writing our principles at. Task 2 is inspiration. Now, often as a character designer, you'll get given a script and then you'll go do research, but we want to bypass that because it really works for this exercise. And it is a process you can go through. We don't have a script or a project. We're just going to reveal our understanding of character and form through playing. So what we want to do is do 8 squiggles, and I'll do the first one just to show you what I mean. We're just going to make a little shape within this outer ring here. So I've drawn some kind of fluffy round cloud thing. And we might change and so do start, and we want 8, so we're going to just go around. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 in between each of those. So I'm going to go to 3 o'clock here. My tip might be to actually think about shape language a little bit. Draw maybe a more rounded shape first as your basis, then draw some sharp shapes, and then maybe something which is more straight, rectangular, and you start to go over the shapes one by one. So I'll keep going and you'll get a feel for it. And if you feel like you're not happy with these shapes, go again, or turn the page over. So I'll start with something that's circular. I'm not going to complete the circle, and then I'm just going to draw over the top of that with something else. I've got 2 kind of similar shapes here. So the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to actually maybe start with a more square shape. I won't complete it. And then I'll draw something round, and then I'll draw something spiky. I'm literally trying to look for a bit of a mess. And now I'm going to start to add some rhythm to this. I'm just going to play. You can do this by closing your eyes as well and just scribbling. And what you'll do is you'll start to make accidental shapes. Something that's more interesting and less rigid than we often would start with if we're just trying to get the final design straight out of the bat. So this is essentially basically it's a Zoom way to be able to do ink blots. So we often do this in a session where we're doing ink blots. We drop ink on and we let it dry, and the randomness of the ink allows us to see different shapes, and then we'll draw things on top of that. So yeah, maybe don't overthink it, and just try to make something that's different shapes. I've done this a lot, so I'm kind of confident where this is going to go, and you're in a maybe a nicer stage of you don't quite know where it's going to go, but and I'm a bit jealous of that. So yeah, do just absolutely go crazy with random shapes here. And that's going to be the basis of our first pass of working out a character. So maybe you have 8, maybe you have more. You can keep doodling more, and if you don't like something you're doing, you can add another one in the gaps or out here. But this is where we're going to go from this. We're going to start to see shapes in these, and we'll hopefully give you enough time, 5-10 minutes to have a play with this, that you probably fill up all of them. And in its simplest form, it's draw 2 dots for eyes and a mouth. And that's the simplest version of that, and a character will form itself. And then you want to ask yourself, is your squiggle a head? Is it a body? Is it a whole character? You might find the arms, the legs in there. You might need to add arms or legs or hat or hair, cape, scarf, whatever you think of. You'll go to a certain place that you immediately think of in terms of character design. Clothing, hair. This can be an animal, this can be an alien, this can be a human. I might prompt you to suggest that you try all of those different ones. There's a fantastical character or a made-up mythological character, stroke alien. There's a more human character, so you might try to make one of these into a human. Any sex, age, gender, race, you might want to think about those things just to prompt you where you might go with that. Could be mythological, human could be in the past, live in the future, live in the present. It can be that. And maybe one's an animal. So you might think of not 2 legs, 2 arms. You might think of 4 legs, 8 legs, a tail. So you absolutely have fun with this. Just start to see what would that look like if I start to add to it. And if you get quite quick with this, then do add more. So I'll start to draw in a second. My prompts here are that you could add eyes, mouth, legs, hair, arms, hands, shoes, wings, whatever you can think of in the next 5 or so minutes. So I'll draw along with you. And my only extra prompt would be that an eye can be a round circle for an eye. So that's 1 eye. Can be 2 dots. Can be a more elliptical shape for an eye. Can be taller. So actually I'm drawing that quite small. I'll just zoom in there. Can be absolutely any interpretation of that, and then you can expand that to legs. Legs can be little stick figures with points on them, and they can be little round shapes with nobbins, they can be boots, they can be webbed, completely up to you. Be loose and expressive with it. It's the best way to start from this. If you prefer and you work with art quite often, you might want to go somewhere that's more detailed and refined, but at this stage it's beneficial to be loose and fun with it. So I'll kind of talk over while we're playing. Feel free to get started. I'm going to pick on a few shapes here. In fact, I might draw around the other way. So I'm drawing upside down. That's a nice little challenge for me in this. So I'm going to draw here, and I'm just going to turn this into something. And don't worry if certain shapes come over each other. I see a head in this shape here, thereabouts. So I'm going to add little teeth. I'm going to add to this. Maybe this is a leg. Maybe two other legs, and I've got some kind of dinosaur alien creature. And I'm just having fun with it. Stegosaurus-y spots. I've got some go-to places I like to take these characters. I'm going to go a bit random, little, don't know, almost bunny-like ears, and just having fun. And the idea in that iteration, whether it's within here or in the final stage, I can go nuts on this, knowing that I can redraw that there and thereabouts and play with it in a different context and take the ears away or add things and take things away, make legs longer and bigger. Cool. So I'm going to park that one. I'm happy with that. That's just this nice little randomness of an idea. And I've got this kind of fluffy cloud-like piece here. So that could be a head, but let's make it a body, and I'm going to draw some legs to get me going. Maybe this is a multi-headed beast. Maybe they share some kind of fluffy like cloud nest, and it's the idea is it just takes you to weird and random places the more you do this kind of thing. So yeah, I'll add a little tail in, and I might call that done. So I'm going to come over to this one here, and I've got some spikes here, so I'm seeing something a little bit more evil. I'm going to draw upside down so you can see it the right way. This could be a crown of some sort, but I'm going to turn it into a little sharp-eyed creature. Maybe little fangs. Going to keep the kind of sharp angle idea going. I draw a shade like this. I start kind of deeper and then just wiggle along to indicate shade in a sketchy way. So I'm going to turn this into an arm and add another arm on the other side. Yeah, let's keep it all pointed. Let's be really obvious with the shape language idea. And keep my running theme with a tail for now. That's the beauty of the first of all the iteration, but also the silhouette or the thumbnail. So 3 of those different principles that we've talked about already. That I'm just working fast and loose, knowing that I could just really quickly have a go again. I don't like the tail, so I want to see it without the tail or bigger legs. So if you find something you like but you went a bit too far, just know that's enough to get you going again. Your character designing, you're being really expressive really quickly. So I'm going to keep moving on. I'm going to try to find the shapes in this one. Actually, this one here, quite like the idea of an eye there. I can see a bird-like shape there. Actually, I'll make it. Let's give it some kind of spiky hair. A cockatoo when I was younger that had some kind of spiky hair, so when I draw birds, I always come up with this. Just going to give the impression of feathers here. No real worry about the reality of this. It's this abstracted idea. It's just an impression, and that's great. Another great thing about character design, certainly in the early stages, where you're given almost like a dreamy, fuzzy-like impression of what it could be. Your mind, or your team's mind, or the viewer kind of fill in the gaps. It's this cotton wool, dream-like, fluffy impression of what it could be, and that's enough to give an emotion that someone will respond to in your team, or if it's a small enough project, you're in charge of that decision, and you can let it speak to you. And start to run with something. So again, I'll keep going. I've got this kind of flower-like, I don't know, it's like a flower, but it's got a thing here. Could be almost a budding little flower. So I'll do eyes like this again. Maybe I'll make those eyes thicker this time, just to play with that idea. Little cheeks, little smile. Yeah, it's going to be some kind of flower-like character. Yeah, I'm still holding my pen quite high, and if you're not comfortable with that, I would encourage everyone to have a little go with that. It doesn't feel natural, and I quite like working with biros and these ink pens. I like the unartistic side of it. They're a bit crude, and again, just give me these random little lack of control. They were never designed for art necessarily. So I'm going to move on over here now. Oh, sorry, I'll give you a quick scan of my page, looking like a nice, glorious mess already. Can already see somewhere I can go. So I've got some kind of spiky thing here. How should we play this one? I'm going to give a little round head here. So just dots for eyes. Mouth, he's actually going to be this way around. If that's an arm, then I need another one on the other side. And I'll pull these into little round feet. Maybe a little belt across here. And I'll give him a cape. And I'm going to go over again, don't worry if you go over these different sections, that's fine. Cool. Maybe some ears. Oh, I might have ruined that one, but that's okay. Cool. So I'm down here now. And I see almost an explosion in this. I'm going to call these ears. I'm going to draw it this way around. Again, I'm upside down, but these are right way around for you. These are ears. Let's think about the eyes. Maybe just one eye. And it's kind of cute, stiff like arms at the side. I can imagine they'd wobble. Let's just draw some wobble lines here. Two little lines. You can already start to think about how that could animate. Yeah. Little cheek, little mouth. Great. Now I'm on to my last one. Maybe we'll do one more minute. So if you haven't done 8 or so, we'll just know we're going to wrap up. So if you want to speed up because you see a few ideas you want to work with, then just randomly pick where the eyes go. And it can be enough. You might define arms, but I'm going to move on to this. Okay, I can see a kind of fish-like. Actually, we'll draw this one around my way. It's going to be quite symmetrical, ambidextrous. Looks almost fish-like. And what I love about this is I would never have drawn a fish in this way. I love the different shapes, the accidental rhythm to the character. And by rhythm, I mean there's different sections which have a different shape. We class rhythm like Morse code. If Morse code is all the same, I'm going to draw Morse code for you now. It has no texture to it, so it has no rhythm. Morse code is shape, dash, dot, dot. So there's different sections that are different proportions, and that's what you get in abundance when you do these kind of doodles or these ink blots. Like if I drew a fish, I would draw a fish like that. I've got a very underdeveloped appreciation of what a fish looks like. So they're almost this iconic image of a fish, but this accidental doodle and squiggle gives me just so much more interest than I would naturally come up with. The alternative is to look at reference. Of course, that's another way to go about it, coming at it from a different angle. This is just one way to play and explore. So yeah, so I quite like this. Might develop that later. So I love the spikes. And the spikes in contrast with the round eye. And I'm playing with 2 different shape languages there. So it gives a bit of texture overall. Great. So I have this shape here. Going to move on to the next stage now. So if you haven't completed it, don't worry. If you want to play here more, I think I'd suggest moving on to the next stage we're going to do, because it's an interesting one. We want to take something from that. But if you want to come back here at any stage, you can do, and you can explore these. And as I say, iteration from these, you can then redraw in between the gaps the same character, but change something, change one thing, change a few things, play with shape and size, add, take away, and then it's really fun to explore. Cool. So I'm going to move back to the presentation now. Excuse me. So task 3, we're going to play with shapes, silhouettes, and rhythm. So the idea is that we're going to take, if you have a chunkier pen, pencil, you can. A fat pencil is fine with that. I will also demonstrate with one of these. We're going to draw 2 shapes, and it's predominantly a square, circle, and triangle, and different proportions of those 2. And what that's going to be is going to be the head and the torso of a new character. Now, as you can see those examples there, they look like the body and the head of a human or a stylized human. And I'll demonstrate the first one. You can copy along right now, but this is still demo situation. So if I've got a square, now a square can be a square, it can be a slightly rounded square, of course, as well, but it can also be some form of rectangle, just something which is solid, and that's what we're going to class as one of the more square-like shapes. And then on top of that, we can play with a circle. Now, a circle can be a circle like this, or it can be a more pear-shaped example. And what you get is you get the head and a torso. I'm drawing these my way around now. And from there, we could draw the same thing, but play with those proportions. So the square-like shape maybe is more square than rectangle, but it's also smaller in proportion to the head. So I'm making these really cartoony shapes. I'll do something which is much more realistic next. So that's the fundamental idea, that we're just going to chop these up and change them and alter them. We've only got eight alternatives of this. There'll be multiple iterations by the time you get into these circles, pear-shaped, rectangle, square, triangle, pointy, rectangle. And this is somewhere between a triangle, of course, and an oblong or circle. So next, I'll do, and I'll draw it your way around, something which is more traditionally proportioned. So that's somewhere between a square and a triangle. So that's a torso. I'm going to have shoulders here and then a head here. So the head, I'm going to bring up in a triangle and then add a little circle to it. Slightly cheating, I've slightly got 3 shapes here. But just to show you, it's the same fundamental idea that there's a triangular shape in this, and there's a combination of a square-like shape, and I can make it a square. Previously, I had it slightly tapered in so that it was a triangle shape. So I can do that again, actually. Torso is triangular. So yeah, do start now, do copy along. The idea is to just have different ideas of shapes of torso and head. And what we'll do to that is then add, whilst working in silhouette, we'll add arms, legs. At the moment, I'm starting to think about humanoid characters. So 1 arm, 2 arm, 1 leg, 2 leg characters. But then we could add more and we could go fantastical, imaginative character. So if I work with a pen, now the idea is if you've got your pen or pencil and it's quite fine, just work extra small. So just work thumbnail, and thumbnail literally means your thumbnail, that size. So if you want to draw something which is circular, might be a bit tricky to see this one. I'll momentarily zoom in, and then square, and you can fill it in with your pen or pencil if you only have the one to hand. And then from that, in a second, once we've drawn 8 of these head and torso shapes, we'll add all the extra details. So the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to make it a bit longer and then have a long triangular shape for a head. So I've got square-like body, but on its side, or rectangular shape, should I say, and then some kind of head. Now I'm purposely doing that because I want to show you that we can think of this in terms of animal as well. So later on, we can add 4 legs and a tail and a horn for a unicorn. But we want to make these interesting in silhouette, and that's the point. And we're going to take one of these for our final design as much as we can take one of these ones. So I'll carry on in the slightly thicker pen because it's easier for you to see, but no, you can work in a smaller pen. I'll change color. So let's start with a circle, and then let's go for a triangle. Might flatten that off. So I'll always start with a base shape, but then I could change it. So it's a circular round shape here, but then a flatter edge here. But our starting point is square, circle, triangle. Then we can move on from there. So that's something with a head. So let's go slightly wider base, this one. And a head, which is, maybe let's make that a square as well. And of course I do need to join that up. So already if you start to veer off the idea of that super simplistic shape and need to add a neck in, or even if you're in the zone with one particular character before you get the 8, you can just start to add extra bits on. I will complete this, add a few more just to fill up the space. Again, you could close your eyes and just kind of doodle, knowing you're going to make a rough shape, so you could make a spiky shape. Let's call that okay for a square. It's got some sort of spikes in it as well. Starting to veer into this territory now, but that's where the mixing of these ideas becomes interesting. And then something of a head. So I've got a number of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I didn't double count that. So that's enough to get started. If you're still at that stage, great. You can see where we're going. We're just going to add extra detail. So I'll continue with this one because I started it. Long arms, and maybe short legs. And there's an idea that there's a bit of depth here. I'm going to slightly cheat to show you what I mean by this little shadow. You don't have to do this. If you're working a light enough pen, of course, you can then repeat the process we've done here. Again, we can do this with ink blots, and that's really interesting to do, to draw detail on top. But if you only have a black pen, the idea in today's process is that we don't draw in the detail. We're just making it really, really interesting in a silhouette. So I'm going to add, could add funny little legs to this. But let's say I don't like that and I want to add something traditionally proportioned. So some kind of animal with hind legs. And yeah, today's fashion for me is a tail. And again, I'd encourage to hold the pen, even if it's a slightly thicker, chunkier one. I'm just going to scribble and doodle and see what I get. So this is uninteresting. Just add some extra interesting shapes in there and see what I get, and start to wonder after what they could be. We can always tweak again in the final stage or extra here. I'll go back to the yellow ones, try to fill some of these in. So this character, do you know what? He was round my way. Actually, I'm going to change it. Say he. Decided it's a he already. So there's a nose. It's going to be right around your way now. I'm going to smudge my yellow pen with black ink there, but I'll live with that. Let's do tiny arms, see what we get. Nah, let's do long arms and shoulder pads. Right. Maybe a little bubble hat. So bubble hat and shoulder pads. A little fashionista here. Cool. So now this one, I'm going to draw him or her around my way. Great. Now I've done it enough. I'm never too bothered about whether I like something or not at the stage. I'm just kind of, I'm going to flick around here and see what I get. Just try to mess about with it a bit more, because it's about adding these interesting details. Just easier said than done. I've done it enough to know I'm not after a solution just yet. I'm after presenting new opportunities to then capture and grab and refine. So, she'll, he's looking like that. I don't know where to go with this one. I think I'll just park that for now and maybe come back to it. It might present itself as a good opportunity to work up in the final stage. Let's wiggle this. Got some kind of elf-like creature here. Let's give it a slightly bigger nose. It is. And finish my last two yellow ones. I'll spend about 2 more minutes on this because we're going to want to work these up and have a bit of time to share. I'm just going to stick with the stick legs and arms. Let's see. And the great thing about silhouette is you can easily draw with a bit of interesting dimension. You don't have to worry about the volume and representing that with line, especially if you're coming back to drawing, having not drawn for a long time or don't regularly draw. Silhouette can help you. A 3/4 view, so what I mean by 3/4 view is not straight on or not directly on the side, somewhere where you're looking at the character in a slightly twisted pose, is usually the most dynamic pose. It's the most interesting way to represent it. It adds form and volume. So most of these I slightly draw, not dead side on. So if I take the example of the elf here, I see that as being 3/4 view. So as if the eyes are here and character's facing this way, rather than facing just directly to the side in profile, which you do as a character designer. You will need to know how it looks on the side in a more directly facing pose on the side and from the front. But to add character, to add dimension to this, it's really good. So I love working in silhouette for that reason. I think it gives you the ability to see in a nice, slightly twisted pose quite easily. It can be really easy to fall into drawing straight on and quite rigid characters. This adds a bit of flow and texture to a design. So just gonna work up my unicorn momentarily while we finish up here. It's about another 30 seconds on this, and then we'll move on to essentially our final stage. But it is working from what we've got already and then working it up. So if you're not super happy with something, that's okay, because that's what we're going to work up in the final stage in the middle here. So I'm kind of happy with that. I'm actually just going to mess with these a little bit. Great. Right. So let's move on from that stage. That was our task 3. We would have ended up something like that. I've done color here to show you that nice and quickly. The slides have this black and white version here. So task 4. So what we're going to do now is refine and expand. The idea is that we're going to write down our lead character. So we could call that hero or heroine if we wanted to. But in the center here, we're going to write in the middle, lead. And then either side of our lead character. So we're thinking this could be a film, TV show, comic book, computer game. It could be anything, but we need our kind of, for want of a better term, these are cliche roles in a film. So we're going to put villain. That could just be some sort of enemy or someone who's conflicting with the lead. Doesn't necessarily need the cliched villain idea. We also need sidekick as well. Now you might have your page quite nice and small, so work with the lead predominantly, unless you prefer the idea of some character that you see as a sidekick or a villain or an enemy or a force to oppose one of the other characters. Then absolutely you can just work with that, or work with that bigger and just work slightly smaller with the other one. We're going to focus on one to possibly present. There's a lot of people here, so we'll only get time to present a few. So don't worry too much about that. But yeah, absolutely. So I would start with the lead. I would start with the character that you think is maybe the most appealing. Maybe ask yourself why you think that character is a lead. Think about it in terms of appeal, so a character that really speaks to you. But also think like the shape language. It's not about trying to find the most heroic character in terms of shape language. It doesn't need to be super strong and square. Just ask yourself why you see a certain character as a certain way. And we use these principles to as a tool to refine or change a design based on any feedback we get given. Today, you're just after your personal interpretation of something. So I would pick one of the characters on the board and think which one is your lead. So if it's one of the silhouettes, you have to then redraw that. And I will demonstrate that now because that's going to be interesting. I'm going to draw this character here. It's a kind of spiky, it's definitely four-legged character. And what we'd like you to do is choose that one. You can circle it if you want. I've just circled it on here. Consider changing one thing. Now, you don't have to, strictly speaking, but it's an interesting thing to think about the iteration, that look at something, judge it, and think at least to try, what would I change? What would be interesting to try to change? So I've got a character here, which you may or may not be able to see. I'm going to rework that as my lead character. And because it looks quite animalistic, I might actually change that it's a character on its, standing on its hind legs. So like this. So I've gone from this character here, which looks more like some kind of wolf-like character, to this. So something's changed. And it's quite sharp. So it's got those kind of villainous, cliched attributes. But that's not to say that I can't, have a character that is the lead character and has that design, but also I could contrast it with rounded shapes. So it has that. Another principle we talk about a lot is appeal. Appeal is interesting. You know, what is appealing? That's somewhat subjective. I'm going to give him little boots. Maybe his arms are quite small, but that's okay. Great. So that's my lead character. Now, again, if you had some kind of light color pen, you're welcome to work this up in silhouette and then draw over the top of it. This final stage is about you using whatever you want to then feed into this, so you can work in a different medium, work in a different style. So based on that lead, I want to find a character which complements that and which I think is the sidekick. I'm gonna not rush through this. If you're, for want of a better term, stuck with redrawing the lead character or the one character you're thinking of to work up primarily, could be the sidekick or the villain. Do stay there, absolutely. Just redraw it. I'm drawing quite fast here, and I've again done this quite a lot. So I'm just going to talk through the next process. And if you don't necessarily finish these in the session, you're welcome to obviously continue these beyond that. So I'm going to go to the villain next because I've got this little spiky character over here. It's kind of slightly demonic, and I'm going to try and redraw that. So I don't have to redraw it exactly. Again, naturally that came across in my first demo here with this. But I'm going to try and change the proportions. So this character's got a slightly large head, smaller squat body, and long legs. And I'm going to work with this idea of shape language that we used here in the silhouettes. And I'm going to try and change that. So I'm going to go super tall ahead. I like the random little squiggles I've got there. I don't need to copy exact, but I do like those side squiggles here. Maybe bigger eyes to compensate for the fact the character's so small now. These don't necessarily have to represent their size next to one another, but it's an interesting task to do if you can do it, if you've got enough space on this page to work out how they look different. Remember the Simpsons silhouette, the height difference, the difference as you went along, almost like reading a word, capital T's and small A's. It's got a rhythm and flow to it. So standing side by side with one another, it's really interesting to see them together. So let's go with a slightly wider body, and I'll keep the same legs. So something's changed. I like the inward facing feet. It's going to look a little sympathetic. Great. And I can call that done. I'm going to leave the tail off there. I might give a little cape. Get another of my go-to. See what the character looks like with a cape. So now I'm going to work out my sidekick. And my sidekick's going to be some, well, I'm going to go for my fish. So I can see it upside down there. So it's just going to be a floating fish. We're in fantasy land now. I'm going to have the fun of trying to redraw what I accidentally nicely redrew. So it's got somewhere between a feathery tail and a fish-like shape. So that's my sidekick. I'm going to draw a little shadow here. So it indicates the character is floating. In fact, let's draw that along there. So I'll turn that around so you can see what I've ended up with. So these characters here. Now, I'm going to want to try to wrap this up in a few minutes. This is the example on the slides here of the cast. What we're going to do is, for the very last task, just a couple of minutes before we ask you to present, or ask anyone if they'd like to present, is pick one of those characters. And again, you can spend more time after this and just work out who they are, what's their name, what are their likes, a pet hate, a strength and ambition, maybe an ultimate fear. And the idea is that we've quite quickly generated the idea for a TV show, film, books, essentially a story. We've got characters which are friends, another character which conflicts, a character that might lead the story. And as soon as you then expand it into these elements, you could get the idea for a bigger story, whether that's a series of stories like a TV show or just a one-off story like a short film or a feature film. So the moment you do that, you start to have fun with this. So I'm going to try and name this character here. So I'm going to call him Uni. Can actually give him a unicorn horn. So he likes, and the likes, hates could be anything, just innocuous. So, triggered her upside down, and I thought, I'm going to put peanuts. I'm going to put ambition next. So ambition is to say he wants to be an influencer. So a social media influencer. And I'm going to park it there. You can pick 3 or so of your favorite ones you want to work up. Great. Now, we did have 8 tasks. A number of those are just presenting and sharing. So I won't go into the rest. And I've slightly enjoyed myself too much. So I've gone a bit over time. If I wanted to go through those. I have some extra resources at the end. If you want to stick around, I can really quickly put those up on screen so they're recorded. But I'd love to throw over to Olivia now so we can share, or ask if anyone wants to share the results of their work.
Great, thanks, John. So if anybody is happy to share their work, we'd love to see it. You can just put a note in the chat function and then we'll get you up on screen, unmuted, and have a look at your work. Hopefully someone will want to. So Elaine, let me find you. So hopefully Elaine should appear shortly.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Can I hold it up?
Yeah.
Yeah, marvellous.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah,
great.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you want to tell it? Can we just see the middle one a bit closer? Is that all right? Yeah, it looks great.
So I quite like the idea of playing around with the hero and villain constructs and playing around. I have cats, which I love, but they drive me nuts. So they sit on my work when I'm painting and they knock stuff over. And I have one small cat who thinks she's a dog, so she plays fetch, but she also likes to shove things off the shelf. So kind of my villain is down here. So it's this small, stand out from the crowd, green animal. And then the hero is that small weedy kid in your classroom who everybody falls over themselves to help, and they're the pivotal point for everything else. I can't decide between my villains. I've got several, but I do quite like this idea of the slender man, slender woman kind of figure that's in the background, because I'm really fascinated by shadows and how shadows kind of go over things and wrap around things without you actually seeing the thing itself. So
marvellous. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great.
And then I think we've got Ro and Ro's son who is desperate to share. So let's take a look at that.
Hello.
Hi, Ro.
So, I don't know if you can see us. Can you see us?
Hello, yes, now, yeah.
So this is my son Rufus, who is doing the session with me. He's 10 and he
Hi,
wants to
Rupert.
show you. I don't know, we can't see what you can see, so I don't know.
Lift it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm
Up
just
a bit.
looking to see if I can see us.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. Okay. So I'll hold it up and he can tell you. So here's his characters.
Yeah, that's the
Actions.
Sidekick.
Great. Oh yeah, I like it.
Little
And
face.
then the other one.
And then you've
He's
got,
the superhero.
he's got a good
Marvellous.
chin.
Love the cape as well there.
Yeah. And then, I don't know if I can get, oh, hang on. And
He's
here
the
is the villain.
Oh, great. I love those shapes. Yeah,
I
really
like the
expressive
glove.
drawing.
I love the hands there. They're brilliant.
Yeah.
They're gloves.
Yeah.
There we go.
Fantastic. Well done. Really good. Really good. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Rupert.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
We've got Jenny. Let me find Jenny.
Good boy.
So hopefully Jenny should appear shortly.
Hello.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
You see me?
I think I've just sent a request for you to share your video, so you might just need to. Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Hi.
You can see you now, yeah.
Right. How's that?
Oh wow.
Oh, great. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I love
good.
doing this. This is so transferable. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, yeah. It's really good. Yeah. Do you have sort of stories for those? Or relationships?
They're
They're nice.
sort of, they're made of metal. We've got this guy here. He's got he's, I don't know, a bit like a wild boar. He's got tusks. The sidekick is a bit more gangly, a bit taller. The villain hovers. He's got no legs. It's amazing
Fantastic.
how all that comes to you, isn't it? Just from a few shapes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
well
great.
merged. Yeah, I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No, yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. Yeah. Oh, I love all the options. Yeah, yeah. This has gone really well. I love what I'm seeing today.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Let's click on one more. Who else have we got? Keely. And then if anyone also has any questions, do put them in the chat and we'll get those answered. Hi.
Can you see it clearly? So I think I need to work on being a bit more expressive because I've done very quite tight drawings, but I do fine art, so I think that's why. So I've got this little character who developed down here, and I think they're just a little shy goose type character with a little frog style sidekick.
Yeah.
I love
that.
developed that.
So I think I just need to be a bit more expressive with it, but that's good. That's something I can work on.
Yeah, yeah, and that can come with yeah, the materials are great, you know, if you're using kind of inks and pastels, something which is slightly out of your control. Yeah, I see what you mean, but yeah, I love that one, and there are some great shapes in there.
There's a really cute one with like almost like a little dog with a tiny nose. I'm a big fan of that one.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, thank you. All right, that's great.
Thank you very much. So we'll just see, I'll take a look at the questions. And John, if you open up the chat, you should be able to see those. But if anybody does want to come on who's got particular questions for John, that's also absolutely fine. But if you do need to rush off, that's fine as well. We're still recording, so don't worry about staying on for questions if you do need to go.
Great, I'm just going to look through these.
Do you want to show those resources as well, John? Well, and I can kind of keep on the questions if any come in while you're doing that.
Yeah, sure, I'll go for that. And looking at those questions there was about sharing the PowerPoint. Absolutely, I'm happy to share this if anyone would like to receive a copy.
Great, thank you.
I will jump a few tasks ahead. Just to talk about job of a character designer. It's really quick. The idea that what we've done today is that green square in the middle, the experimentation. You'd often get a brief, you'd research, you go find visual imagery. Great to go in the real world. You don't always have that luxury, so web-based research is great. But then you get presentations, you get feedback, and then you keep developing. So you go back to research and experimentation. So what we focused on today was the experimentation and one method of that. The resources, again, if you're interested in these, do ask for the links. These are some really useful books I found handy. The Create Your Own Universe one, bottom left, is very young orientated, so I like it for me as well, but I think I would advise that if anyone's dealing with a younger audience or student. Some references to online content, talks and articles there. And also 2 very good sharers of process here, Grizz and Norm. They do something called Tuesday Tips, which is a regular series of tips which they update. You know, I'm not sure if they still update them, but they're still blogged online on Tumblr and Instagram. So they're fantastic resources that I keep going back to and learn new things by revisiting. And Mitch Louis here kind of does a rolling set of instructional Instagram posts, really handy. And on the Neuroanimation website, our own website, we have a character design section. I've highlighted the little red section down the bottom left there, where you can get a version of the exercise we've done today and has a little bit more detail. So in terms of some of the principles and processes. So yeah, that was me. Is there any questions you'd like me to address, Olivia?
I don't think there are really any questions, just a lot of thank yous and how absorbed people's children have been, so that's great. And I've just said to everyone, we will make sure to circulate the PowerPoint, thank you John, the recording. So it might just take us a little bit of time to get the recording and everything together, but hopefully we'll be able to send that out to you very soon. But hopefully that was helpful and fun for everyone. And also, please do send us photos of your work. We'd love to see them, and we can put them on Instagram. So if you tag us anyway, Outreach, then we'll make sure to share them. And we'll be doing that showcase on the 2nd of July of our favourite pieces. So no competition, no pressure. And then just to say, we've got a break tomorrow and over the weekend, but then we're back again on Monday, and that's a brand advertising workshop with our graphics course leader, Martin Schooley. So if you haven't booked that already, do go online and you can book onto that. There's still space. But thank you everyone for tuning in again, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Yeah, thank you very much.
For a few minutes, just in case there are any questions, but otherwise see you soon. Thank you. So lots of lovely comments. Can I see yours again, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep going comments.
Oh, great. I love the lead.
The lead. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I like where that went, yeah.
I think it really helps using the coloured pens as well, actually.
Yeah, and absolutely. And we use either ink or if you can get hold of something like this, or even, sorry, I didn't bring it out, but a marker, because people have these. They're really handy because then you can draw on top of that. It's an extra process we do in sessions. We just run out of time to do that today, or in these ones. But yeah, it can be really handy. Yeah, lovely comments. Thank you very much, everyone. If anyone's there. Nice.
Great. So it doesn't look like there's any questions. So I think we'll leave it there. So thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. And see you soon.
Yeah, appreciate that. Take care.
Bye.